they don't just also complain to like major outlets and stuff. Sometimes they really complain hardcore towards Square Enix themselves. I don't know if you saw this at the time, but I think it was the last TGS or like the last like big event where Square Enix was showing trailers and stuff. And people were mad because Square Enix decided not to show the trailer for Kingdom Hearts 3. I remember that. Like, I remember seeing all the social media posts and everything, and people were visibly pissed off at Square to the point where, like, there was like an influx of fighting amongst fans saying, like, "Oh, we got to wait till Square decides to show it." And then there was like people that were like expecting, and they felt like they demanded and were entitled to Square revealing information about a game. I remember also it was the same thing where there was a Japanese event, right? Mm-hmm. And apparently there was supposed to be a trailer coming out for the Japanese event specifically for that region, and I guess there was a trailer that was supposed to drop at some point, and it didn't come here to the U.S. Like, it didn't come here in English or anything of the sort. And people were also, like, very upset. Like, they started really attacking Square on, like, Twitter and all other forms of social media. I'm like, wow, like, you guys got to chill the hell out, because I get being proud of a game, and I get being proud of your favorite series and stuff. But then there comes a point, right, where you just got to step back. I saw the same thing with No Man's Sky recently. Like, that's a prime example of like when the idea of fandom and being like a supporter of a series kind of goes awry.
Yeah, it kind of goes too far. And I think, it's also a side effect of Square Enix sort of combining the Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy dev teams and stuff, because obviously right now their main focus is Final Fantasy 15 because that's coming out next month. And, so the side effect of that is that, Kingdom Hearts is going to be worked on at a bit of a slower pace right now, just because, they have to focus everything on Final Fantasy. But once that's out the way, they'll get right back to the work on Kingdom Hearts 3, and then it will start to pick up again. And I'm sure we'll see something for it next year. I'm absolutely sure we will, because, once 15's out there into the world, they can entirely focus on that game. And, somebody else, they have a different team working on the Final Fantasy VII remake. So, that won't harm them too much as well. So I just do believe right now they're focused on, one specific thing. But once that's over with, they'll get back to Kingdom Hearts and, they'll get it out as quick as they can, I think. And people need to understand that, because these are the guys that are in control of these games and developing and putting work into these games. So you need to respect them, because they have lives. They go to work. They have their 9 to 5. They put in overtime and all this stuff. And they're working as hard as they can to make this game for you guys. So you should respect them.
And it's funny you mention that, because we saw the Kind of Funny Patreon exclusive podcast, though the one that me and you watched about with Alexa Ray Correa, where she was talking about Kingdom Hearts 3, and she was talking about all these Square Enix games that are coming out within the next couple of years. And she felt, at least in her opinion, which I agree now, especially in the wake of all the recent news that's been delayed to like next year for like January and stuff, that game, Kingdom Hearts 3 and some of the other games are way far out, like really far out. Like we're talking 2018 territory.
Yeah, I think the earliest will be 2018. Like, I don't think the game will come out next year, but I do believe we'll see a lot more footage. We'll start to see a lot more coverage of the game from next year, I think.
And I partially agree with that to an extent, because I feel like we're going to get more news. Like they already said, originally it was supposed to be December, and there was also supposed to be December where we were supposed to get Kingdom Hearts HD 2.8, but they pushed that back to January. And then everybody thought, well, maybe we'll still get maybe the news during PlayStation Experience. And they're like, nope, January. Okay. So everything got pushed back like a month. And that makes sense to me, because according to Alexa, when she was talking on that podcast, because let's be real, she had sources that were over there at Square Enix. She's worked with them and talked with them over years. There's a trust and a relationship built there, between journalists and subjectee. You know what I mean? But what she was saying, and I think it's very true, is that there is a lot of stuff that's being worked on at Square Enix. They have a lot of big AAA, big budgeted, ridiculously popular franchises and games that are going to be coming out within the next couple of years. And one of the biggest problems with it was the allocation of different people on different teams to make these different games. Now, one of the things that she mentioned, and I think it's a huge part of it, and why Kingdom Hearts 3 is coming out much later on than what people think, was Final Fantasy 15. Because remember, Tetsuya Nomura was working on Final Fantasy 15. Before it went over to Hajime Tabata, Nomura had to transfer everything over to Tabata. And before then, Nomura was working at like a snail's pace, according to her and according to some of the people she spoke to. And it was just that stuff was not getting done in a timely manner, which makes sense because some directors like Kojima and a couple others out there that we can name in the industry are perfectionists. They take a lot of time, but even though the games they make are phenomenal, don't get me wrong, they're amazing, 10 out of 10 experiences. But sometimes, especially when you look at the business side of things, you can't take forever and a day to make a game. That's just not feasible, especially when there's a lot of money going into it. There's a lot of people working on it. There's time being wasted. At some point, you got to shit or get off the pot. And that's what I feel like Square Enix got into a position, especially when things were getting transferred over to Tabata. And according to her, to Alexa, where she was explaining that once Tabata got in there, he was a whip cracker. He got in there and started getting stuff done. And now all of a sudden, you're starting to see more of Final Fantasy 15. You're starting to see the game start to progress at a different type of pace now that the game is actually coming out in November. Or at least that's what we believe. It's already been delayed a few times, but like it's getting close to its release. And I feel like that's the same thing with Kingdom Hearts 3, where Kingdom Hearts 3 is, it's being done by someone who knows the franchise, who's been there since the very beginning and stuff. But at the same time, between them taking their sweet time and such, Square Enix also has to allocate all these resources to other games. Final Fantasy 15, Final Fantasy 7 Remake, Dragon Quest 11. The list goes on. And not to mention all the other games, World of Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest Builders that just came out not so long ago. There's a lot of games that are going on over there.
And then there's all the remasters as well that they're doing, like 12, Final Fantasy 12, and what's the Kingdom Hearts that's coming out in January?
The Kingdom Hearts of January is not a remake. Well, it technically is. I should say I should take that back because it's the re-release of Dream Drop Distance, which is the 3DS game. But really, The reason why people are buying that is because of that new prologue to Kingdom Hearts 3 called 0.2 Birth by Sleep, which is it's just new content that's using the Kingdom Hearts 3 engine and like setting up what's going to happen in that game.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean they have a lot of stuff to produce, and not to mention Square Enix are also doing a lot of mobile stuff with Final Fantasy as well.
Definitely.
So there's a lot on their plate, and they have so many hardcore fans for these different series that it can be hard for them to keep up, and they can run into staffing issues. And I feel like considering that they do have such a small team in comparison to other studios. They're doing an excellent job putting out these games. And of course, it's going to take years for, the big scale games like Kingdom Hearts 3 and Final Fantasy 15, because look at the games. I mean, there's so much to them. Like, it's going to take a while. So people just have to be a little more patient. I mean, they should be thankful for the fact that it's finally coming. They know now that Kingdom Hearts 3 is coming. So we should all be thankful for that. And, for people like me, this is also great because I have time to catch up on the series as well. So like the series can start to develop new fans ahead of the release of Kingdom Hearts 3.
Exactly. And to be honest with you, one of the kind of final confirmations that I knew that this game was far out, besides listening to that podcast with Alexa, was her saying that when she talked to people, she said that a lot of the worlds and stuff haven't even been figured out, haven't been chosen by Square or Disney. And there's a lot of legal stuff and things that you got to do in order to make some of those things happen.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, one of the biggest problems, which I think is a huge point of discussion, even though a lot of people, especially a lot of content